Hello, Internet. Thank you once again for joining me to talk all things vertical drama. I'm very happy to welcome the special guest today, who is Tommy Harper. I'm going to go straight over to Tommy. Please, can you explain to the audience who you are and your background in film and television?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. And my name's Tommy Harper. I'm a film and television TV producer. And some of my credits are Top Gun Maverick, Beetlejuice, Star Wars franchise, Mission Impossible franchise, Star Trek franchise. And then I'm currently here in Dublin, Ireland, filming the third season of a TV series for Netflix called Wednesday.
The people's jaws will have dropped when they've heard of that. You know, that's not just one recognisable franchise name, that's the whole host.
Yeah.
And firstly, thank you for all that amazing entertainment. So the next natural question is, why are we here talking about verticals?
Well, we're talking about verticals because I'm starting a new company. I have a tech platform that's launching very soon in April called VeYou. It's viewing for everyone is kind of the background behind that name. And I'm interested in verticals because last year I read an article and I didn't know anything about verticals. And I read a Financial Times article that really intrigued me and got me to do a lot of research about it. And we can talk more about that. But basically, what I love to do is I like to make things, and I like to make things that kind of reach the world and are culturally relevant and pop culture. And I feel like this is a TV in your pocket and everybody can watch it anywhere and anytime. And I love that. So I love doing movies on the larger scale. I love doing television on big scale or just television that people can see anywhere and everywhere. And I love the vertical space because I have things I want to do in this space that we'll talk about. So that part's very exciting to me.
Of interest, what was it about when you started researching verticals that kind of really got your attention? What was the numbers that really stood out to you?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I was on a train in Spain. I was going from Valencia to Barcelona. I have a son who lives there and goes to university. I'd just come from London. I was scouting for a film and I was reading a Financial Times article and it was talking about the microdrama space in China and talking about the 3.4 billion it was going to make that year, 7 billion this year, and potential, kind of like you could see the curve chart of the financials going up. But beyond that, I was researching, and the article was talking about the web novels and the web novels turning into to verticals being successful in China when it kicked off. That led me to a bunch of YouTube links, then talked about the Western audience engaging in it now and who the players were. So for me, I kind of was like, oh, this is interesting. Never heard about it. And I was like, I'm not always on social media nonstop. I'm kind of like very structured with my time. So I kind of look at things as when I need to, but I was like, where have I been? This is obviously a big thing. But in the middle of that article, being on a train in Europe, these teen girls walked in and sat down, popped open their phones, and literally immediately started watching verticals. And I kind of was like, I was a little shocked. And I called my son and I was like, Henry, do you know about these? He said, yeah, my friends watch it. And my friend, spent some money on it. And we were kind of joking about like how I didn't know about this. And so I just became a student of it and immediately started reaching out to platforms, started reaching out to producers, started meeting people. When I got back to LA, I sat down and was like, okay, who are the top X amount of top vertical actors in this space? And I reached out to one of them and we'll talk about, my intro to, I also financed one that's coming out soon. And I sat with Casey Esser and sat down probably for about 3 to 4 hours. And I said, tell me everything you know about verticals. And I just dove headfirst to understand it.
One of the things that sort of when people first encounter these is a bit of horror of like, this is the end of culture. This is the death of the attention span. It's going to kill cinema, film and TV. As someone who is heavily immersed in the other mediums, how do you see verticals sitting alongside?
Yeah. I just think it's another form of it. I don't think it will kill it. I don't think it will destroy it. I don't think it's going to massively meaning compete with it. You're going to have your cinema goers that love to go to IMAX or Dolby or sit in the cinema and watch it, which I love to do. And you're going to have your audience that wants to just watch it on their phones. You're going to have your audience that is like not wanting to do that and they want to watch it in their home. So I think it's just another form of entertainment that is accessible for people. The attention span does, just as a parent, does make me nervous a little bit. I would say kind of on top of everything, the thing that just concerns me the most with it is some of the things that are being made. And I'll talk about on our platform what we're making. But I think like here to stay, I think it's going to be here for a while. I think that people like watching the stories on their phones. I think people love their actors in the space. And so I think it's just another form of media that is going to sit alongside it.
Encouraging answer, so don't panic, everyone. It's all right. So, what was the process then of once you've got interested? Some people go down I'm going to set up a production company. I'm going to be a studio like that. It's a bigger job to go, actually, no, I'm going to do an app. What was the process of deciding that setting up your own platform was the way to go?
Yeah. So my process was, I came back to America from being in Europe. I mean, I spend probably most of my time in Europe, on my entertainment business. And so I was in Los Angeles, reached out to Casey, sat down with him, understood it. And he had told me he was raising money to go do Love Under Fire. And I said, oh. And I went home, my wife and I talked about it. I said, I really, want to learn about this, understand it more. And so we invested some into the project. I poked around set for a day. I was like, this is interesting. This is like, it's just how fast the pace is, how, you have the script. As soon as you have the money, you could be on the set within weeks, you're shooting. And I started kind of going, okay, what is the play in here? I started talking to some investors, started a pre-seed round with a VC. And in my head, I was like, distribution is the way to go, right? That's how you control as much as you can. And so I said, okay, I want to build a platform. And so I started investigating that and raised some money. We're still in the raise round, but the platform is built and it's going to come out in April. And that was number one. And number two was, okay, what is the stories that are out there on all the platforms? So I spent a lot of time researching platforms, researching the content on the platforms. And we're doing something a little different than probably a lot of them, where our tech stack is that it is a tech platform and our content making is out of the platform. So I have investors raising film funds to make original content. We've got probably about 100 original series in some form of development. We've got about, we just wrapped one last week in Eastern Europe, in Romania. And I think that I didn't initially want to go start a production company to make them, but I want to kind of make my own originals. And so we will go make those. And I have somebody who will kind of oversee that studio from a production level. But that was the thinking behind it, is like, let me control the distribution model. We can spin off a studio and go make originals. By the way, I don't have to make all of our own originals. Any producer can make anything. And if it's up to meets our standards for VeYou, we will put it on the platform. So it doesn't have to all come from our studio.
That's really helpful. So I just want to talk about the name briefly, because one of the challenges as fans is a lot of the vertical apps have really similar names, and they're like a mix of real, drama, shorts. You can sort of mix it all up and it gets really hard to tell the difference. So something I loved is that you had a very different name. How long was the process of coming up with that?
It was, well, the first, I have to lean into my 18-year-old son who was like, he was like, you should do something different. Think of Hulu, think of NVIDIA, think of, these names that are just made up names essentially, but there is a meaning behind it. And VeYou was something that we just kind of like started kit bashing names around. And it comes from like, kit bashing is like the old Ralph McQuarrie kind of like Star Wars kit bashing things of making things and making models and making imagery, and Hulu's a made up name. NVIDIA, like I said, is a made up name. And VeYou was something that works in Asia, works in the States. It's viewing for everybody, excellence in viewing. And we want to be a premium app, kind of like the HBO version in the vertical space. Now, that's not to say that we're going to, we're too prestigious and all that stuff, but I'll explain when we get to the content what we want to make and what that means. But, so I really like the name. I like that it was totally different. At one point, we were going to like maybe go Vertiflix, which I own the name for. And I was like, okay, that's too original. And even with our branding, which you'll see, I mean, the website, if you go to the website right now, the landing page, it's very different. It's immersive. It's probably going to stand out and be a little kind of like, shock at the moment, at the first when you see it, but then everybody will get used to it. And we wanted to be different than all the other platforms out there, because you do look at the titles and all the pills and they all look the same, and real short, real this, real that, and drama shorter, just it becomes all one. As a business, as a platform, my background, I also was a COO at a production company called Bad Robot for a while. So on the business side, I know that we have to stand out. We have to be different. I can't compete with a lot of the Chinese apps, because they've got unlimited resources. So we have to be very strategic on how we position ourselves. And so I thought VeYou was something different. I think it's fun. I think it'll be very catchy. And so we're excited about it.
Yeah, it is instantly memorable. And I'll put a link below, but do go have a look at the website because
Yeah.
it definitely feels different. One thing that quite a lot of apps will do when they start up is this awareness that they need a library of content to keep the viewer there. So often
Yeah.
what happens is there's a purchase of kind of existing vertical titles that have been on other platforms. Is that something you'll be doing, or is it all going to be your own content?
Yeah, we will license a certain amount of content. And I've been aggressively, probably for the last 4 to 6 months, meeting with different companies and looking at a bunch of material. And so we will have to build a library like the early days of Netflix, essentially, right? And then we will have Love Under Fire will be on our platform. We will have some other titles that we have on, I would say, platforms that are smaller that maybe people haven't seen yet, that we will title as a VeYou original series versus VeYou original. So kind of like what Netflix does. Like for instance, on what I'm working on now, it's a Netflix series, or because it's an MGM production on this one on Wednesday. And if it's all in-house at Netflix, it's a Netflix original series. We will brand things accordingly. So we have I would say we have 5 titles, including Love Under Fire, that are original in some way. And then we will have roughly another 15 or 20 titles that are very curated. I spend I spend a lot of time watching all the kind of licensed content, and I'm meeting with the partners. We want to. The goal is to make the library feel very authentic and branded, and keep with our theme. So that's the approach with it. And by the way, we'll see how it goes, but there's also partners, maybe not in the traditional vertical space, that I feel like is making really good series that we can maybe re-edit that can fit into the space. So we may take an approach at that as well.
I think one of the things that surprises quite a lot of people when they hear about verticals is their initial assumption is the audience is very young. It's kind of a crossover of the TikTok audience. Obviously, there is some of that audience, as exampled by the teenage girls in Spain on the train.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a huge part of the audience has basically been me, which is
Yeah.
women 30 to 65 looking for romance. I guess the question is, how much will you be leaning into that audience? And then how much are you looking to expand and bring in new viewers?
Yeah. I've read your report. As you know, we were
Yeah.
talking as I was on a treadmill in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I downloaded your report, and myself and my team have all read it numerous times. And I was very helpful, and I thank you for doing it, because yes, I know the audience. And so for me, it's like, I'm the star. Like I want to hit 16, the eligible age for the app, or whatever that age is, all the way till you're not watching anymore, till 90. That's my age. That's who I want to hit. So our originals, as I say to everybody, we'll make safe, meaning what people want to see and are used to seeing, right? I want to do romantic comedies. As I say, instead of making your traditional CEO, then this, then that, what have you. We want to do that, but we want to do it kind of in a romantic Gary Marshall world in the vertical space. And I worked with Gary Marshall a lot, Pretty Woman, Princess Diaries, those movies, Runaway Bride. So we'll hit the audiences that are the biggest kind of aggregate to watching. We want to go right after Gen Z as well. We are going to dip into big time action, because I love it. I do it in my career. And I'm sure there's going to be people that it's not going to work in the space, and we're going to try it. And I think it can work in the space. And I think we're going to do it in a way where that will still lean into what works in the space. A bit of horror. And one of the ones that we have that's an original is, I would say, like a thriller horror, but light, very light, horror, not Saw. We're very, very light, kind of like scream, or what would you look like if it was on this space? So things like that. So we're going to listen to the audience, listen to the demo, and try to give people what they want.
Could you explain a little bit more about the process of just the episodes and the paywall? Because I think it's a common misunderstanding that people think all verticals is you just squish the screen and there you go, you've got a vertical. Whereas actually they're written to a very specific format to grab the attention. Sort of how much is sort of that part of the thinking and
Yeah.
how you've developed it?
Very much part of the thinking. I mean, like when for us as a platform with VeYou, we want to make, so in my traditional film world, premium large format, PLF is what we call it in the industry, where you have the IMAX and the Dolby. And I want to be like your premium vertical format, PVF. I understand the rules. Like we have in our production Bible, we have our writers' rules, and the writers we hire follow those rules. And a lot of the writers are in the traditional vertical space. Some are in the TV space. Some that are in the TV space, I share with consultants in the vertical space to make sure that they're hitting the right notes, as I'll say, that you're hitting the hooks, you're hitting the cliffhangers and all that. So I don't want to reinvent that, because that is what's working right now. So I listen to it heavily. And I think the paywall, it's the nature of the business, right? Like for better or for worse, there is a paywall. You pay as you go, and or you do your weekly, monthly, daily, what have you. When we release at the beginning, because of our content library, we will have a paywall, but then you can just purchase the whole episode. You don't have to be like micropayments. We will eventually probably get to that, because that's a business model, but we will hit paywalls at different places, essentially.
Just want to go back to action, because obviously KCS has done a brilliant job for kind of people who follow him on Instagram of sort of sharing how Love Under Fire happened and clips of that. And yeah, it clearly is a move into action for verticals. But obviously the tension you've also got is verticals are made very fast. How do you combine those two to do a really good action story with also
Yeah.
a very tight turnaround and small budget?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is on our platform, we may add an extra day or so of shooting to make sure that we're delivering what we want to deliver. I come from the space, so I think like what I feel like I can bring to the space and help with our filmmakers in the space is how to do things that still feel big and epic in action, but as you said, we're in a vertical space. So like what you see in the frame, you can get away with a lot. And we will use, kind of the new visual effects to help us with explosions, to help us with bullet hits, to help us with things like that. So we're not spending a lot of time on the set dealing with that. And so I think for us, we're writing to the space, we're writing to what we can do. We will be bold and ambitious, but we will give, I think, when we start getting into our action originals, I think we're going to deliver things that are going to be quite mind blowing. And I think from when people see Love Under Fire to what we end up doing, there'll be a massive difference because of just how technology is changing so fast. So I think like our action series are going to, I want to really push the boundaries in it. And I know it can be done, and I'm excited by it. And so, yeah, I think to answer your question, it's going to be about production time. It's going to about keep the budgets for us. We're still keeping with the traditional budgets in the space, and we're not going to like double the budgets. We're not going to, because then you're not like, from your business model, it's just not going to work, and it's going to be difficult enough to survive in the space. So we have to be very kind of savvy with how we do things.
One of the challenges that I know a lot of people find once they start digging into verticals is like, okay, production costs low, that's great, but actually the main spend on the big apps is the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
If I've heard figures of up to 90% is actually the social media ads. Yeah, I guess kind of how much are you planning to do the sort of the traditional social media, and kind of what other avenues are you exploring for your marketing?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm very well aware that what the marketing spends are, where the money comes from, and what companies are kind of cash flowing the businesses. So we're a scrappy startup, so we have to be very kind of clever of how we do things. So we're talking to brands, and there could be some brand influenced verticals. And what we would do is organically make those stories feel natural to the audience so they don't feel like they're watching just an hour commercial. And the brands want that too, the ones we're talking to. And we would lean on the brands to help us with marketing. And so they would market as well as we would market. And we will have organic and growth marketing people within our organization. But we're looking to cast, some actors that also have large social reaches. And if they're influencers that maybe want to come in for a couple hours to do a role or a day to do a role, that's something that we're very interested in as well. And then we are going to look at different forms of activations, not just your traditional marketing that you just flood the arena with social marketing clips. So, and the other thing is, our originals have to stick in your brain and word of mouth and get people to drive to the app. So for us to make something for 150 to 250 and spend 5 million on marketing, that's not sustainable. And so our business model will be strategic and efficient, and we'll see how it goes.
One of the great things you've kind of shown is that understanding that actually quite a lot of the talent in the space already has a huge following. For instance, Casey Essas, obviously that's brilliant marketing bringing him in. And you've mentioned influencers, but I can also see behind you, as all of you as well, a kind of a wall of household name in talent. Do you see a future where that sort of talent is possibly moving between verticals, TV and film, in the way that they now move between film and TV?
Yeah. I mean, listen, anything's possible, right? Like when streaming happened, nobody thought Spotify would be where it is today. And so I think anything is possible whatsoever. I'm very aware of the fans and not who they like, but they like their stars in the space, right? So like it's to bring in a mainstream actor in TV or film into this space probably wouldn't work right now for a lot of reasons. But there could be a world where some of the actors in TV and film that want to pop in and out of the vertical space, that anything is possible. Then you get into, union issues and things like that. And not really much issues, you just get into things that have to be figured out, right? So listen, my feeling with everything is you just want to make the best story possible, and whatever that is, like I would want to do. And my whole career, I've always been a person who's like, how do we push the boundaries? How do we make things feel bigger and better? How do we do things more efficiently? How do we get the best actor for the space? And what I would say is was refreshing for me too is, we're dipping around and experimenting with things. And a person who's been helping me out tremendously, Roberta Sparta, who's a producer in the space, we've gotten a lot of actors that have come in the vertical space, big actors that have done things for us because they believe in VeYou. And so I like the space and what all the actors are in the space. But by the way, I'm finding actors that aren't really big in the space that are really great actors that I've found watching licensed content. And one of the leads in our series that'll come out in April, I found her watching tons of hours of licensed content. And I texted Roberta and I was like, can you please go find Kimmy? And wherever she is in the world, I mean, I was impressed with what I saw, and even more impressed in what we captured when we got her in front of the director, what we were shooting as well. So I think like there is a world where people can dip in and out. And I think there's also probably a world where you might have musicians dip in and out, just people that aren't traditional actors that might want to come in and do a day on a vertical.
So exciting. My mind's
Yeah.
boggling now. And I think I know which Kimmy you mean, and she is incredibly talented. So that makes me.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she? Yeah. Yeah.
Then I guess one of my theories is it's with a lot of the new apps, there needs to be quite a strong brand association so that people know what the feel is. And I think you've explained quite clearly that action is going to be a big thrust. But I guess what other associations would you like people to have with VeYou as a brand? So when they think of it as an app, what do you want them to think of?
Yeah. I think with VeYou, we're going to be, here's the thing. We want to feel safe. We want to feel the community. You can come here, you can watch things. We are not going to make anything that is abusing women, drugging women. I don't want any stories where a woman wakes up the next day and goes, oh my gosh, what happened at the bar? Who are you? Like to me, uh, I don't do it in my TV and film life. Literally, my wife one day was like, you can't do that. And I was like, not going to do that. But but we will do things that, as I say, that are a little sexy's the wrong, you know what I mean? Like there's just romance and there's heat and there's passion. Yes, we will do those. We're not a faith-based app, but we're right down the middle safe. And I think it's basically like things that a global audience can see. It will feel like when you go on there, it's stuff that's like on Netflix, you know what I mean? It really is, but it's not. There's just some things out there that have pushed the boundaries, in my opinion, a little too far. And it's like, how is that even available on your phone? And my traditional thing is like, I get up and I go to the gym and I'm on the gym, either listening to podcasts or I'm watching verticals and seeing what's out there on all the different platforms. Sometimes I'm in line grabbing a coffee and I'm like having to put my phone away because it's a little too crazy. I think we're right down the middle and we want to make things that are, like I said, that are your 16-year-old can watch and your 60-year-old can watch. And so we want to make them feel a little more premium. We want stories to be told elevated a little bit. They're going to visually look a little better. We're going to pay attention to the costumes, hair, and makeup. We're going to pay attention in every director that works with us. How it works is I talk to them a lot and we talk about look and feel. We talk about tone. We talk about framing. I'm a pain in the butt about framing and how things look and aesthetically. And so for us, it's really about like value and making sure that when you're buying it, you're getting the best quality that we can deliver for you for the price. That's what we want the audience to get.
So exciting. So I think we have to end with, first of all, will it be available both on Android and iOS?
We will. We'll be available on both. Where our launch date will be very soon. We're in the throes of getting it delivered. And what we're end up going to do is we'll reach out to you and we're going to uh offer the fans we'll give away a certain amount for free to the fans and we'll figure out that system, you and I. And I think, we want the fans to keep coming back to the app. And we'll be doing things much further along that I'll talk about at a later date that we will be, for the fans as well. And so there's a lot of things that I'm excited about in this space that will be coming. And I think the originals will be really good too. And I think they'll be, when they start coming out, you'll feel there's a romance, there's a thriller, there's a this, there's a that. And they'll all start, we're not going to change the dial immediately, but we're just going to slowly play around with things. Yeah.
And just finally, everyone I talk to with verticals, the thing I always picked up was just this is providing work that just is not around in Hollywood, whether it's crew or acting. Overall for you, how does verticals just fit in with providing the entire creative industry a future?
Yeah, I mean, that's to me listen, I always love when you're creating jobs, and that's the big thing I always love to do. So for me, it's like what I like about it as well, it's not just it's the industry is struggling right now and there's not a lot of work. And so I think there's people that aren't working that want to play in the space. But I also think there's the young crowd, the young kids. But when I was in my 20s, I didn't go to college. I went right into working in film and TV. And so I was the kid at 20 working, 16, 17 hours a day. And I think now, if you're in your 20s and you're breaking into this business, it's really difficult. So for me, and I've talked to a few different countries and cities and states that I like to pitch a program for the young, film students or whatever, let's fund 5 verticals or whatever and start a little program. So I think for me, yes, jobs, yes, the new generation getting jobs in this space and kind of mentoring people to rise up to this. And for me, on the creative side, on the talent, on writers and directors, by the way, I look for people everywhere. You don't have to just be in the vertical space. By the way, a couple of our directors I found on YouTube and who've made shorts and who are working for us. So for me, I think the job growth is really interesting. It's really fun. And I think, by the way, you just have to be bold. If you're a filmmaker, don't wait for somebody to hire you. Go make your own vertical and reach out to us. Go to VeYou.com, go to our creator page and sign up. And you can go that's what I love about this world now. You can go it's 4K. You can go make your own film and you can shoot it and you can edit it and you can release it for a fraction of the cost and make some money and have a career. So the world's yours. You just have to go do it.
I think we have to end there because you've just inspired everyone to go out and shoot. Thank you so much for your time and for explaining the vision. And I'm basically now just waiting for April to arrive and I can get my hands on VeYou. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for doing what you do.